What's up everyone, welcome back to the channel. So this week's video is actually a continuation of last week's video. I actually did an install of stainless steel brake lines and this is how they look right there, and the rears right there. So in this week's video I'm going to be flushing out the old brake fluid and refilling it with new brake fluid, which is Prestone DOT4. To start this off, this is your brake fluid reservoir, and I'm gonna take it off like that. Alright. This is a filter for the brake fluid, and this I'm gonna replace it after I do the whole sequence of putting in new brake fluid. So when you're doing a full-on flush, you have to take out all of the excess fluid as much as you can from the reservoir and then refill it with the new brake fluid. So what I'm using is just the regular old syringe. And then I'm going to put it in and suck out as much fluid as I can. Now that I've taken out most of the brake fluid from the brake reservoir that I could take out, I'm going to cut out about 2.5 feet worth of tubing. So when I'm doing the brake bleed from the actual brakes, I'm going to be using this tube and putting it inside a water bottle so that the brake fluid can actually go into the water bottle. I feel like that's about enough. So from the previous video, I actually made this kind of setup. So it's one big hole right here and one small hole for a vent. So it should be a little bit smaller than the tubing itself so that it sits flush. Okay, once that's in, I'm gonna put it so that there's a lot of slack inside of the water bottle. This is the old brake fluid that I took out. It was only a very little amount because while I was doing the stainless steel brake change, a lot of the fluid just fell out anyways, so yeah. This is a full-on flush and refill, so it doesn't really matter. I'm making it so that the tubing is at the bottom. If you don't have a self-brake bleeder, you should fill up about that much of new fluid and connect it to the brakes because you don't want it to go back up and then make air go inside the brakes. I'm using a power bleeder and that makes it a lot easier and I don't really have to worry about that. This is the power bleeder that I'm going to be using. It's by Motive, and the way to use it is first connect these two tubes together, and then I'm going to fill this up with DOT4 fluid. Connect this to the brake reservoir after you fill up the brake reservoir with new fluid. The best way to do this, I feel, is to fill it as much as I can with the DOT4 fluid, and then hopefully push out all of the old fluid by filling up the reservoir with newer fluid and flush it out completely with this power bleeder. So after I fill it up completely and connect this to the reservoir, I'm supposed to pump this up to 15 psi. And then that makes it so that I can do this whole process by myself. And I'm going to be pumping it to 15 psi each wheel that I do. And the bleed order for an Evo 10 is driver rear, outer, then inner, then passenger front, outer, then inner, then passenger rear, outer, inner, then finally the driver front, outer, then inner. So I'll show you guys the whole process and hopefully I don't mess this up. So here we go. And I'm gonna fill 2 because I'd rather have too much than too little. Alright, fit. Now I'm gonna close it on. That should be good. Now I'm gonna pump it to 15 psi. So it did start leaking a little bit right here, so I'm gonna tighten this up. Alright, and hopefully that solves the problem, and I think it did. So normally this would be a 2-person job because someone would have to be pumping from the inside, but because of the Motive bleeder, it's just going to be me. That's the outer, and then there's also an inner right here. So this is either an 11mm or a 7/16 because a 10 is a little too small and a 12 is a little too big. So I'm gonna try the 7/16 and hopefully that'll get this open. Alright, there it goes. Okay, I guess I'm gonna have to open this up a little more. Alright, there it goes. And the new brake fluid, oh, there goes a lot of bubbles. So the new fluid is actually white. So hopefully I can make it so that only white shows up. Close it up. Release. Close it up. Release. And I don't see any more bubbles, so I'm gonna move on to back side. Alright, sometimes you're gonna have to use a wrench to pull these little rubber tabs off. Okay, connect it again. And then I'm gonna check on the bleeder and see if it's at 15 psi. Bubbles are coming out. So I feel like the best way to do this is open and close it multiple times so that it can have the pressure to push out whatever is inside the lines. The bubbles have stopped coming out, so I'm going to tighten this and then pull this tube out, and I'm going to put this rubber back on. The rear driver set is done. Now I'm going to move on to the passenger's front. All right, now we're at the passenger's front, and I'm going to start with the outer and then go to the inner. Ooh, look at that. There's actually stuff that's coming out. It's not actually bubbles. It looks like dust, and it feels like it'll be okay after I do this flush. If it does drip down your brakes, you want to wipe that off before it gets too far, because this is corrosive and the paint will probably get eaten away. Alright, I think this side is completely done. Close this off. Now for the rear, take that out. Alright, there it goes. Lots of little bubbles. Wow, lots of bubbles. Alright, I'm gonna close it up once more and then open it up again. Oh, there's a lot of bubbles there. I'm gonna close it off, and then that's the end of the passenger front. Alright, this is the passenger rear, but I feel like you guys get the gist of it, and I'll just finish this up and then I'll conclude this video. So, see you guys soon. Now that the brake bleeding is done, I'm going to be opening this to release the pressure. And then I'm going to take this off and then fill that to the fill amount, and then we should be good. Alright guys, so I finally finished installing the stainless steel brake lines and refilling the brake reservoir with brake fluid. This was one of the much needed maintenance jobs that I needed to do but never got around to, and I think I should have kept more up with the maintenance, because when I was draining out the brake fluid there were bits of little black pieces, and I'm not sure what that is, but it might be rust, it might be just built up residue. I feel like I should probably do the brake fluids every maybe 2 or 3 oil changes, and I think that'll keep the car in tip-top shape. So if you have any other sports car, I feel like you should probably do the brake fluid change every so often. In the next video, I'll probably be doing spark plugs for the Evo. After that video, I'll probably do a price breakdown of how much my Evo cost from buying the car to doing all the mods. I probably won't include labor, but the price is pretty high. So don't forget to give me a like and a subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Later!